Welcome to the Comprehensive Financial Advisory Committee Operating Budget Subcommittee meeting. Today is April 23rd, 2025. Our subcommittee is composed of Tom Keene, Chris King, Chris Lauzon, and myself, Lillian Wu, and the Director of Finance, Mark Mill. We are in the process of looking at the proposed operating budget for fiscal 26. Is there anybody here who is recording this meeting? Please make yourself known. Not hearing any, we can proceed with the agenda. And since Tom indicated that he has to leave at 7, why don't we just jump right in and look at your revised school budget?
Sure. And just a couple of words. First of all, thank you to committee members, especially Lillian, for comments. I think I incorporated all of your comments, Lillian. And I also received a lot of comments from the school department, which were very helpful. This draft that you're now looking at has also been circulated back to the school department, Chris Dwelly and Sarah Ahern. I don't think they have any changes. There was one number they helped me out, which I'll incorporate in the next iteration, but it appears that we're getting close to final here.
I think so. Do you want us to go page by page and make comments?
If that's sufficient, I mean, it can be a very if people have more comments, that's great. Yeah. I'm also just happy to take them by email.
I don't have any comments until page 3. And that's the expense categories?
Hold on one second.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me just bring it up for myself. Okay.
You have under that table, you have you start. This is the overview, I assume.
Are we on page 3, Lillian?
On page 3, you have a table of the expenses.
I got enrollment on page 3.
It's enrollment, yeah.
Yeah.
I can't not. Maybe it's the old page 3. It's the one that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's now page 2, right? Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Because it's an overview, I wonder whether it would be a good idea because I know that you mentioned this later on in your report, because you say that it's the largest expense. Would it be appropriate to say that it's 80%? Because I know you mentioned 80% later on, but just to give it a perspective.
That salaries and wages of the
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Because I thought it was missing, because then you start talking about the FTEs. And I said, well, we really need to get a grip on how big the salary is, because you just said it was the largest category. So that's just my 2 cents worth.
Sure. All right. And I'll just double check that it really is 80%, but I assume it's close to it.
Well, yeah, I did it, and it's 80%.
Okay. All right. Any other changes? Anyone
Nope.
else?
Tom, you got the number here from Chris about the that's highlighted at the bottom.
Yes,
here?
I did. I just haven't put that in yet.
Okay.
Okay. Enrollment. Anybody have any comments on the enrollment? Again, this is such a thorough report. You touch every base.
Well, thank you. Yes, you're right. It is 80%. I'm looking at actually at the on page 10.
Yeah.
Right.
I think one of my only
I also
comments
thought it was really instructive to note, what we did do a calculation. I think Chris Dwelly went through it, that the real budget that the real spending, of course, is dramatically higher than even what we see in this budget.
Yeah,
I think some of the pages, I mean, there's a lot of white space because of some of these charts. I don't know if there's a way to tighten some of that up, or if it's just
So,
been what I'm
Mark,
looking at.
at the time that you pull this together into a report, do you do formatting and anything like that, or do you just
Yeah,
put
we
it in
certainly
as-
can. We can definitely go through and just do some formatting changes if the committee would like that, to address like comments that Chris just made. If we can eliminate
Yeah,
some of the white space so that, you have full pages here like this one
I'll
here.
I'll actually, once I drop in a few numbers and make some of the edits, I'll actually do some reformatting too.
uh-huh.
I kept white space here merely because it was a draft. I do have two questions. And one is that I use, for fiscal years, I use the format FY202X. Okay. Is that, I just want to be consistent with how we're going to do it throughout the entire document. Some people like to do, drop the 20, uh, you know,
Well, in my draft, I use the same format
okay.
that you did. Yeah. Oh, I do
That's
have
the
one
most
question.
common. Yeah, that's the most common way to
Yeah,
do it.
Okay.
that I've seen.
I just
I
find
do.
it clearer,
I
but
do have one question. You mentioned the superintendent by name,
yes.
and that's fine with us, but we normally don't do that. We normally name the position.
Oh,
So
I'm
the
fine to do
position,
that.
yeah,
Sure. I'll knock that out.
okay.
And my other question was that each section of here starts on a new page, and that may be what you were referring to, Chris.
All right.
Um, do you, is paper at a premium here, Mark, or is that the reason for compressing it in?
It will be distributed PDF format. We're not going to print it out hard copy and provide it to the
Good.
council.
Then I think it's a lot clearer to have each section begin on a new page. Just,
Yeah, that's fine. I just, some of the charts, like I think there was a page that just had one chart on it.
yeah, and I'll fix that, Chris.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's just a clarity kind of thing, so it looks a little cleaner, but
Yep.
it's a great report.
it really is. I don't have any comments until we get to an analysis and concerns.
Okay.
And I apologize for those who know me. I have a incurable disease of editing. Okay. You have something about the inflation. And you said the inflation, a dollar inflation in 2020 was now 78 cents. I wonder if that, with that uncertainty, by the time this report gets out, it might not be worth 78 cents.
I know.
So
I know.
so I'm wondering whether we could just sort of generally say that, the 2020 dollar has been inflated. The inflation has decreased its value or something like that.
Well, I think part of what I'm trying to do in this chart, and that's the one on page 9, is so inflation then gets also measured against any property tax increase. So you're actually seeing the real value of the property tax. Inflation wouldn't matter if property taxes went up exactly at the rate of inflation,
Right.
but they don't. And so what happens is that you actually see in 2020 that because inflation was low and property tax increase was 2.5%, we actually had more money in effect buying. But then it's been eaten away by higher inflation since
Yeah.
21 down to 25. And I think that's what what I'm really talking about here is trying to quantify just what an imposition Prop 2.5 has on the town's ability to stay on pace, if not ahead of inflation.
I think that's an excellent point. The only thing I was mentioning is that
Yeah, who knows what it is in
yeah,
26?
yeah,
Yeah,
just
I know.
yeah,
I know. I
okay,
know.
okay. Um,
Can you do a greater than percentage or less than percentage rather than a physical number? A direct number, just to kind of give the trend? Because that's what you're showing, Tom, as a trend.
Yeah, I mean, it should actually be shown. Well, yeah, I mean, you could simply in words say that any year where, the inflation rate is over 2.5, then we lose value. But I do think it's worthwhile seeing here that, in the span of 5 years, we're down to basically 90 cents on the dollar, 91 cents on the dollar.
Right.
I don't know. And sometimes I just think by having real numbers here, a careful reader might really care about something like this.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't want to complicate this, but I don't think anything needs to be changed here. But I will say that, under Proposition 2.5, the tax levy actually goes up more than 2.5% when you factor in new growth revenues.
Right, that's right.
There you
Right.
go.
So what we're really seeing is a property tax increase of anywhere from 3.5% to 4% a year, but you're going to get to the same conclusion. The value, because it's still not as much as inflation, it's eroding. So I don't think you
Right.
need to change anything. The message is accurate and that it's in a downward trend, real
Yeah.
value property tax.
Right.
Yeah.
And new growth, of course, is an uncertain thing,
Yeah, and it's
particularly
sporadic.
these days.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have all these Chinese factories that are now going to be built in the United States. And I assume they're just all going to be in Barnstable.
Yeah, they're all coming to the Cape. Yeah.
I have a question. Why did you take out the circuit breaker section from here?
Because it appears that problem's been solved.
I see.
Yeah, so Marcus, I understand it from Chris and Sarah. Yes, the state had been lagging behind, but it appears that last year they've come up to speed.
They did.
So
They
yeah.
fully funded that program. Mhm.
Yeah,
Okay, and then you had something about EFSER.
yeah.
To manage the shortfall.
Right. I mean, that's it. It's the next 4-year plan.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I give the superintendent a lot of credit for this, for
Yeah.
coming into a situation not of her own making and having to solve it.
No, I've got my changes. My pages are all wrong for some reason. I think I've got the one that you had the double
Well,
form.
if you're looking at the red line, then it'll be all messed up.
Yeah, yeah. I'm looking at the red line and I'm at page 17 of the first paragraph where it says equal savings. Where is that? It's at the top.
What's the language?
The first paragraph says equal savings in other sectors of the town's operation. You're really meaning that where you're talking that if you increase more than 60%, then it would be equal savings in other sectors of the town's operation. But do we really want to say that we would have to decrease spending on the other sections of the town's operations?
Well, I mean, I think if in fact the pie is limited, a bigger piece going to the schools means smaller pieces. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is, of course, absent an override.
Yeah.
An override increases the pie, but
Yeah.
in any one year, the town has, figuratively speaking, $1 to spend. If 60 cents of that dollar goes to schools and we change it to 65 cents, then the rest of the town's spending has to decline by 5%.
Yeah. Could we say that a little bit more clearly? I got hung up on the phrase equal savings.
All right, let me, I'll play with that and just see what I
Yeah.
can come up with. Okay.
Other than that, I think it's a fabulous report. Sorry about my comments.
No, the comments are, so for one thing, I made a lot of changes, so I'm sure you all saw from the last
Yeah.
version. So
Yeah, we
I
did.
very much appreciate the comments.
Animosity.
Anyone else? Any other comments here?
I like that you kept Elemonstery still in there. So.
Thank you.
I'm good with this.
All right. I
Yeah.
will actually incorporate some of the comments here. I'll go through it one more time on formatting and so on and recirculate it next week.
Okay. What I will do, you know, because I sent the front matter, I will start plugging it in. And then at the end, we'll just send it to Mark and he'll make it look nice. If that's okay.
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you, Tom. Good, super
My
work.
pleasure. And I apologize for having to leave early. It actually turns
That's-
out I probably need to leave in 20 minutes, but
All right.
but I
Well,
will stay on till then.
I'm glad we got you first then. So we have two other drafts in front of us. We've got the enterprise funds that Chris King did, and you've got the revenue and general fund that I did. So whichever one you want to talk. Chris King, you want to
Yeah,
go on?
we can start with that. What I do want to say is that it is rough. There are what I've tried to do is I tried to put in black type and then red type. And a red type is where I have the majority of the questions. And but I've made all the changes based on the updates that we received from Mark yesterday. And so all of the numbers are correct on each one. And we can go through each enterprise fund and look at where some of the questions would be. And if there's any comments, I'd be happy to take those comments. I don't expect that we'll get all the questions answered tonight. I can, I wanted to maybe get a little guidance. I don't think it's appropriate for me to go run and talk to each of the different enterprise funds with the questions that I have. Maybe I would pose those first to Mark or to the group here, and see if we can get some response to some of those questions. How's that?
Well, I'll start off. I think
Okay.
the description of each of the 9 enterprise funds is very complete. And anybody reading it will get a very good idea of what they're doing, what their projected revenue is looking like, and you get a basic feel of what's going to happen in fiscal 26. So I think that's really good. There are some questions I have under golf.
Yeah.
You have it transferred in undesignated fund. Which one is that? You have transfer in undesignated funds budgeted for $206,718.
That's the Gulf Enterprise for surplus. Yeah, that's what that is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you might want to make that more specific.
Yeah, anytime you see that language, transfer in from undesignated funds, that's
Yeah.
that particular enterprise fund surplus. That's the general ledger account title, but yeah, calling it something different might be more clear to a general reader as opposed to an accountant.
Okay. And it's getting for me, guys, it's understanding the language and understanding where some of this information is coming from. But okay, on golf,
Yeah, it's on golf is the first paragraph, the
Yep.
third line.
Mhm.
Okay,
My question with golf is, there's 3.9 million appropriations, and is this appropriation set up for the clubhouse on Hyannis Golf Club, or is the clubhouse funding separate?
Yeah, that's a separate, that's a capital appropriation that's funding the renovation of the clubhouse. This is
Okay.
the operating budget. They're two
Okay.
separate budgets.
Okay. So I don't need to say anything with the clubhouse specific as to where that funding is coming from at all.
right. Under airport, the second paragraph, third line, where you have R&M, do you want to expand, like repairs and maintenance?
Yeah, I did just
I'm-
say R&M. I can put that down. Yeah, I can add that in as repair and maintenance.
I always look at it as if I knew I was beamed in from Mars and I don't know what this means. So,
Okay.
okay. I think the sewer is good. Do you want to have any comments before the looking ahead section?
Hold on one second. So with the sewer, this is an area that I think the sewer needs a little bit more on CWMP, and
I
I'm still struggling with understanding the CWMP financials that you had sent us, and I'm trying to struggle through dissecting that information so I can pull information out of there. And that's where I might need, maybe 15, 20 minutes of your time, Mark, just to go through that data and see how that can translate into a discussion around the sewer fund.
Okay.
Mainly because, and I understand, we have two main focuses here, which is the operation of the sewers. And then we have the additional expense of the construction that is going on, and they are incorporated into the same budget. And
yeah, think of it like two separate programs within the sewer enterprise fund. One program manages the collection, treatment, and disposal
right.
of waste, and the other program manages the expansion of the collection system.
Okay.
And so both programs have a separate budget. They're both incorporated into the sewer enterprise fund. And yeah, I'd be happy to spend a few minutes tomorrow. I have some availability if you want to call me. We can do that.
Okay. Unfortunately, my other job has been increasing recently, and tomorrow I'm on the road. And
That's
so
fine. Yeah.
If maybe tomorrow evening is okay, or Friday, if you have time on Friday.
Sure. Shoot me a suggested time, and I'll let you know.
Okay. Sounds good. Sorry about that. I'm just on the road tomorrow. A good thing on my other job, it's accelerating, which is good. So just kind of balancing those two things off.
I think one of the things that we need to continue to assess on the CWMP is to emphasize that this is phase one, and we can project out what the total cost will be when we complete it. And I think it deserves mentioning that ultimately, we're going to have to have some kind of debt exclusion You mentioned it in passing, but I think we could expand it just a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. But Mark can tell you all about it. We have all suffered through all of this for many, many years.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
wait till Monday evening's meeting because I put on the agenda for the meeting Monday
Oh, that's right.
a review of the model that we developed for monitoring the funding of the comprehensive wastewater management plan. And so um, I think maybe that'll become more clear when I review that model with the committee.
okay.
I
I mean,
agree.
what I noticed and with the sewer fund is that, you know, there is some consolidation of funds that are coming into the sewer as well as the CWMP as a consolidated fund, which is just trying to um, uh, simplify it, and that's good. Where to answer your question, Lillian, is where I was having difficulty is finding the information for the chart that's showing on the page right now. The
Right.
table is showing so funding expenses net and then debt services. With that chart and filling out that chart, it would have the visibility of uh, how the funding is coming in, how the expenses are coming in, and then what is required for the debt services over time. And that would, with that visibility, would allow a bit of discussion around
Yeah.
the debt
Yeah.
services.
So that's an interesting topic, and I think Monday night in the review of the model, you'll see how you can get to that information.
Okay.
But there are so many assumptions that you're going to have to clearly define the assumptions that you're using to build the table on this page, because you could have a lot of different assumptions and a result that shows you a lot of different numbers under those different scenarios. So, you can show multiple ones using the tool, or you can find, do the best case, the worst case,
Right.
kind of like what we did the first time we reviewed the funding model. I
Right.
think there was about 3 different scenarios that the committee demonstrated in the report. And so we may want to do something like that in this report, or keep it simple and just show one scenario. Like, for example, the base case that I sent you all showed all projects that have already been approved, including the ones that were just approved for fiscal year 26, and that's it. It didn't include any project approvals for 27 through 30. It also showed kind of like a worst case scenario in the event we had a 10% decline in revenue and meals and rooms taxes. We had no money coming in from Vineyard Wind, or I'm not Vineyard Wind, Park City Wind, and we did not qualify for 0% financing through the trust. And that's kind of like a worst case scenario. And it still revealed that we could fund all the projects that have been approved to date,
Right.
including the
Right.
ones that the council just approved last Thursday night. So then we can go from there. Okay, we got a neutral flow policy coming up before the town council soon, which they're likely to adopt. That's going to qualify us for 0% financing through the trust. We can plug that into the funding model, and you can see the capacity that creates, allowing us to approve for more projects in the outer years. And we can go from there.
I wonder if it might make sense in this document just to have a link to the model so that the reader could, a live link so the reader could play with it. Because, yeah, you're right. I mean, there's too many assumptions here. You should go with the base case and use that, but make sure you qualify it that, here's the model and here's how you play around with it.
A link to the model and maybe have an upper limit and lower limit for best case, worst case, and try to have that without having too many numbers on the page. Because I think if we had a CWMP chart that was a base chart as the base level, but then had a best case and then a worst case on the same page, it would be very confusing to look at. And what do I look at? Offering the model for those to look at offline is that going to be okay, or is that dangerous to offer a model I mean, the model is already in their hands, right? They
Oh,
should
yeah.
have that model in their hands. Can give the link to the model, but it would be more. It's almost like a whole section for CWMP that needs to be written up, and that's what I got to focus on.
And I think maybe perhaps, that's a separate report that we work on with this committee, similar to what you did previously a few months ago, as you reported back to the council specifically on the model. I wouldn't want to really include that in the review of the operating budget, because we're just talking about the fiscal year 2026 operating budget that's being proposed with this report. Complicating it with, reviewing that model in multiple scenarios is just going to add a lot to this report that you're going to report on later.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
I think it's more confusing than clarifying.
yes. Yeah, I think you're right. Is based on the budget.
Yeah.
How does the budget look, and can the budget be supported today? And then maybe a future look as to what we need to look at for the future, where future years come in and future expenses come in, and then what is needed in the future. An increase in debt services, an increase in
What I
would
was,
it
go ahead. I was
that's
going to say that you could begin mentioning this at the end of your EF report, and then expand on it in the looking ahead section.
Yep.
Does that sound logical?
It does.
Okay.
And I
I'll
could
listen
give you input for the looking ahead section. I mean, honestly, it's me getting my arms around the sewer fund is fine. The sewer is fine, but once you add in CWMP, getting your arms around how does CWMP affect the sewer? Sewer can stand on its own, which is fine. Adding CWMP because of the gross expenses that are there, how is that? How do you fund that as well as continue to run sewer in a way that sewer runs as an enterprise fund? In other words, standing on its own. And so that's what I'm trying to get my arms around. I haven't been able to do that yet. Honestly, has been confusing for me trying to figure out how to get my arms around it. So thank you for giving me the chore.
I know you're enjoying it.
Yeah, no, I am. I mean, I got to dig in, and that's what I don't what I'm struggling with is I don't know what I don't know. And I'm just really struggling with that and trying to figure that out. So that's where, maybe 15, 20 minutes with you, Mark, might give me the right direction as to where to look and start to put it together.
Okay.
Well, that's the benefit of this subcommittee, that we can toss around all kinds of ideas in our discussion to see what we want to include, and yet limit it to the fiscal 26 operating budget.
Correct.
So whatever you draft.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the problems that I had is I'll go right back to the first line is I talk about all of the enterprise funds as being self-sufficient or have positive revenue with the exception of golf. Well, the reality is golf had operations had positive revenue. They did extremely well.
Yeah,
Where golf, ended up reducing the revenue was with its where it ended up putting money back into the system. Um, you know, funding, um, funding the general fund, basically. So golf did really well, and I don't want to I don't want to say that they didn't have good revenue because they might, I don't want anyone to look at golf to say, gee, they're losing money. They're not losing money.
Right.
no,
So
they're not losing money. They actually implemented some fee increases this year as well, which will allow them to, increase their revenues because they do have operating expense increases that they're dealing with. They're going to have another loan on the books in the near future when we issue the bond to pay for a portion of the clubhouse renovation that's underway,
Right.
the part that's not going to be covered by insurance reimbursements. But they don't make money for the general fund. Just be clear about that.
okay,
They pay for costs, their share of costs that are budgeted within the general fund. Things like their retirement assessment for their employees who are part of the Barnstable County retirement system. That bill
right.
gets paid out of the general fund. They reimburse us for that. All the property and casualty insurance and things like that. Um, the only general fund or the only enterprise fund that's not self-sufficient with the revenue
HYCC,
that they generate is HYCC. They receive a large general fund subsidy.
Yeah.
right. And
I think
so
I think you
I,
should mention that even though the HYCC projected revenue is increased, it still gets $1.5 million from the general fund.
right, and that's what I was looking at the first paragraph and I said it's all wrong, but I want to put it in a way that it sets the stage appropriately.
Yeah.
And I think golf is a great, all of the enterprise funds, as you said, with the exception of HYCC, is actually from a revenue positive state position. HYCC is um, uh, they need quite a bit of subsidy to be able to keep their
Yeah.
operations running, and and so I want to be able to say that in the appropriate way without putting any one of the enterprise funds at a thinking that they're at a disadvantage because they're all fabulous funds.
Well, I think your descriptions are excellent.
Okay. All right. So a little bit of work on the front end, and then a lot of bit of work on CWMP. Um, uh, I try not to take up too much time, Mark, but if we're talking about it on Monday also, maybe it'll become a lot more clear on Monday too. And then I'll be able to redraft that portion of it and have something that makes a little bit more sense uh, for the sewer fund CWMP combination.
Good work, Chris.
Well, it's a good start. Thank you very much. I appreciate
Yeah.
uh,
The only other thing
And all
for
I need to apologize, I'm going to have to exit. My apologies.
bye. Thank you, Tom.
thanks, Tom.
Let's see.
Take care all.
Good report. Bye. The final one is the draft that I sent. It has all the front matter, the table of contents, etc. And I don't know whether you've had a chance to look at it. The methodology and the overview are pro forma. The fiscally sound, I redrafted it a little bit to bring it up to the projected proposed budget in the last couple of paragraphs. And I don't know whether, do you want to have any comments about any of it so far? The projected revenue, I assume, is correct now, Mark.
Yes.
I pulled it
It
off.
changed slightly as we finalize the budget, but I'm hoping I don't have any more changes.
Okay,
Yes, if you pulled the number right off of that table I sent you,
I did.
yep, that's what we're looking at.
Okay. I don't know if you had a chat that what I'd like your input is on the fiscally sound narrative. And see if there's anything you have comments about or you want to change. The numbers are correct based on what the update I got yesterday.
I mean, the only thing I'm thinking is because we just talked about the sewer fund and CWMP and fiscally sound, the town is fiscally sound even with mandated activity like the CWMP, which is sometimes it's not very easy to do. You get a mandate, you have to do this. How do you fund it? And sometimes you fund it with a bunch of debt that you can't pay off. And the town hasn't done that yet. And it doesn't expect to do that based on the model. So I think even with mandated programs like CWMP, the town has embraced those programs in a fiscally responsible way.
Would you repeat that? Where should we put that?
Did you want to put it right here on this page that's up under fiscally sound?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was looking at the last paragraph. That might not be the right spot for it, but the last paragraph goes through each of the different the projected surplus.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
just talking about the surplus and where we're
surplus.
putting it.
The town is able to fund the operations through annual revenue. Still conservative approach. Let me look at that and get back to you, Lillian.
Oh, that'll be great. Thank you.
Right,
I think that's worth mentioning. I didn't want to cause alarm because traditionally we have been so fiscally conservative and with a strong financial base. But I appreciate your comments and suggestions, Chris. Anybody else? Okay, let's move on to the revenue projections. The revenue chart, I mean the table, is accurate based on the figures I got yesterday. So the general fund, so it's just a description of the various components of the revenue. And then we move on to the general fund. I'm most interested in your comments on my analysis and comments. Because the description is just basically that of the general fund, but the analysis and comments are really what is most relevant to the town council and the town manager.
I'm wondering if maybe the commentary on CWMP might be more appropriate in that analysis section at the end about how, you know, we've been able to do that thus far because the town has been so responsible. But that is, you know, a challenge moving forward. So I don't know if that might be more appropriate in that section as opposed to the introductory section to talk about that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
So
good point,
I'll
Chris.
add a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, just, you know, kind of in tune with changes in the economy, have ripple effects, and Barnstable's had
yeah.
stability, you know, kind of
Yeah,
work it into
yeah.
that paragraph, I think.
Okay.
Well, is there a general concern with the CWMP with the town council?
Yes.
Yeah, I think there has been.
There
Yeah, I
has-
mean, we, with the projects that we've approved to date and what's in the CIP for the next 5 years, certainly we are facing challenges where we're going to have to make some tough decisions about creating more funding sources for that program in order to pay for all those projects in the outer years of the CIP. The resources that we've created to date have allowed us to do, over $300 million of projects to date. But we've got another 430 million in the CIP. So we're getting up to over $700 million. We don't have all the resources to pay the debt service associated with that amount of projects. And so we're going to be, we created this model to illustrate that, and you'll see that more on Monday night. And that will then require the town council to make some decisions. Do we allocate more resources away from the operating side of the budget to the capital side of the budget, and more specifically to the CWMP? Do we perhaps put a pause on doing more CWMP projects before we identify more revenue sources?
Right.
We still got the Municipal Empowerment Act hanging out there. We're waiting for the legislation on that to see if that'll be approved. And if it does, what's the council want to do with that new revenue source if they want to implement those additional local taxes? Is that something they want to direct to the CWMP, direct to operations? But so there's a lot of concern over funding the CWMP in the long term. Short term, we've managed it. These first 5 years of the program, we've been able to do some significant projects with the capacity to do a few more, but then we're running our backs are up against the wall pretty soon. And that's the decision point that's going to have to be made.
Yeah, so it's an obvious, I don't mean to ask a question that is obvious, but it's obvious that we need to have some analysis comments in here that basically say the conservativeness allowed us to get to where we are today in a good spot, but which is everyone's already looking at how is the funding for the future. And the model that's there helps visualize where the issues are, and to continue to utilize the model to be able to for lack of a better way, smoke out where the problems are going to be. But Lily, I can help you a little bit with that verbiage, and I think, again, Mark, I have a ton of questions, and I'm sorry that I can't get my arms around it yet because I'm too new on it.
No problem.
I've not been exposed to it enough. And then on Monday, I think it'll be really helpful, and that'll help me put together the analysis for not only the enterprise fund report, but also for uh, the total report.
Yeah,
Is that okay, Lillian?
sure.
I mean,
I like Chris Lawson's suggestion
yeah.
to tacking it on at the end. That
Mhm.
so far we've done okay, but there's a challenge moving forward. We need to create more funding sources to pay for the CWMP projects in the future. The long-term concern is how do we pay for it? And I think we can all add that to the looking forward. I think that'll be a major portion of our looking ahead section. And clearly the most valuable part of our report. But
Well,
yes, I welcome any suggestions you all have.
with the, I know Tom's not here, but with the school committee wanting to uh, float some debt themselves for a new school, is it fair to say that the CWMP, from a comment standpoint, has strapped the town a bit in decision making on taking on debt for other major projects?
I guess if there's one way of looking at that is if the CWMP didn't exist
Yeah,
and we've appropriated $300 million to date for that program, we could have redirected that 300 million to other.
the best school on the Cape.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the Wellesley School was $300 million when I was up there. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's worth mentioning, that the schools are looking for new buildings at the same time that CWMP is moving forward, and it doubles the challenge. I think we also need to point out that CWMP is a mandate, and we have no choice.
right.
And but we need to float it out there.
Well, it's not a mandate in the sense that we're not
Well,
under any regulatory consent order or legal consent order. There are regulations that we must abide by, but we haven't been ordered by anybody to do what we're doing. So there's a difference between the two. Because when you say we're on a mandatory order, it's not mandatory in the sense that there's any legal teeth tied
right,
to it from a court
right.
or a regulatory body. But it's important because we will go there. If we don't do what we're doing, that's the next step. We'll get a consent order from a regulatory agency or a court.
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
know, we're trying to avoid that because we don't want to lose control either of the project, which would be the next worst thing to happen. Like the NWRA, they create, the Cape MWRA and pull everything out of the local community's hands and allow some oversight agency to control the expansion, and then we lose we lose control over everything.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's absolutely no schools.
Yeah.
Right.
I
Okay.
I just thought I'd bring that up. So I'll piece together some words, but I need
Thank you.
I've been struggling because I just can't get my arms around the finances as well as the program and how it affects the I mean, gee, the sewer enterprise fund is just doing fine on its own. And yes, CWMP will increase the connections, which will increase the revenue, but at a cost, at an extreme cost. And so that's part of the analysis that I haven't gotten my arms around yet.
Yeah.
And I think I'm going down the right avenue. I just haven't figured out how to put that into words yet.
Well, we'd be happy to go down that road with you.
Okay.
Yeah, hopefully I can help you.
All
Yeah,
right, thanks. I'll float sometimes on Friday and see what works best. If not,
Okay.
next week's fine too.
okay.
So, okay,
Okay.
great.
Well,
Thank you. Thank you.
that's all we have on the agenda. And I think, Chris Lawson, you're gonna get the police and the DPW figures sometime.
Yes, sometime in the next week, I should have
Okay.
those. I mean, those sections really don't change too much year to year,
Right,
so it's
right.
not going to be anything overwhelming. I'll get those
Yeah.
together as soon as I have the numbers.
Yeah,
I'll get those out to you, Chris, soon. I'll provide you some detail as to the additional funding that we're providing those two departments to address certain needs that they have. So you can comment on those.
Yeah, all good.
so we have designated every Wednesday in April. But we don't have to meet next Wednesday if we're not ready.
Yeah, and I just want to remind you that the town manager submits the proposed budget to the council on May 14th. And so the public hearings will begin the first meeting of June, I believe it's June 5th. And so I think if the committee has their report on that, on the operating budget, perhaps a week before June 5th, that'll be fine. So, you basically have another month, I think, to do your analysis and to draft your report. Because, I want to give you a chance to, to be thoughtful about it. I think the council would appreciate that rather than
Yeah,
having you feel rushed and trying
yeah,
to get something to them, immediately after the town manager submits the budget.
yeah. So what's your
Yeah,
pleasure? Do you want to meet on the 30th or the 7th?
I think we probably can wait until the 7th.
Okay,
That way I should have all my numbers and
all
my
right,
part of it
all
all
right.
set.
Yeah,
And I'll the enterprise fund will be tightened up a bit, and I'll have a first draft of the fixed cost
okay,
section by a week from next week Wednesday. So
okay.
on a 7. So I think that would make sense.
So essentially, Tom's school is okay. And my front matter stuff is okay, except we're gonna add some more stuff at the comments. So we're good. I think we're gonna have some really good discussions about our looking ahead section, because that's the meat of our report.
Mhm.
So, okay, so we'll meet on the 7th. Is that all, is that okay with you, Mark?
7th. Yes, I will have access. I'll be up in Canada, but I will have access and I'll be tuned in
Oh,
and I'll get the meeting set up. I'm working that week, but I'm just working remote. I work remote all the time. So
well, you can get your granddaughter to talk to us.
yeah, there we
Yeah.
go. She could explain CWMP financing to Chris.
Yeah, then
Probably
I
better
can
than
get my
me.
arms around it. Yeah, that's good. Then
Well, thanks,
it's
everybody. Does anybody have any other business to come before the subcommittee?
Nope.
you know.
All right, then have a nice evening.